Hello and welcome to episode 222 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is February 26th, 2024. Today I'm wearing one of my oldest loop scarves or neck warmers or cowls. I'm never quite sure which is which, that my sister knit for me. This is knit out of pure alpaca yarn that we used to have at Wollerödel back when I was working there. It's a pure alpaca DK weight yarn, and she used really big needles to knit this. I do remember something like 8mm needles, but it could have been 6mm, but way too big for a DK weight yarn. But my colleague back at the shop where I worked, she'd knit a cowl like that, and I really liked that. But it seemed so boring just to knit stockinette in the round. So my sister offered to knit it for me, and I love it. It's because it was knit so loosely and the yarn is soft anyway, it is so soft and squishy. And I love to wear it, and it has pilled so much. So it looks really old, but I don't mind. It still works. So you can, if I just hold one part of the fabric up, you can see the shelf through. So you can see it's knit very loosely. It's very big stitches, but that's what makes it so soft and so, you can pull it this way and that way. And I really like it. And when it was done, it was quite wide. So if I pulled it over my shoulders, it would just fall down. So that's what gave me the idea to put a sort of a string through one end, and I did a crochet chain, and I chained one bead onto every stitch. So I think I put the beads onto the yarn, and then I just crocheted the chain with chain stitches. It's difficult to explain, and pulled it through the cast on of the loop. So there wasn't a row of eyelets or something. If you did that, it'd be easier to pull the string through, but it works this way as well. And what I also did is I cast off the cowl, because my sister doesn't like casting on and casting off. So very often when she knits something for me, I will do the beginning and the end, and she just does the knitting in between. And while casting off, I also put a little bead onto every stitch. I think it's every stitch. The distance seems rather big, but that's because of the big stitches. And this way I have a cowl that if I want to pull it over my shoulders, I'll have the beads, the cast off beads, hanging at the lower edge. But because I've pulled this string through the cast on, I can pull the string through, and then I can tighten it here, and it'll be loose over my shoulders, and it's like a mini poncho something. And but if I want to pull it twice round put it round my neck twice, I'll have to make sure the my string kind of thing goes back in. And that's the problem with not having any holes and having put beads into it. It's sometimes a bit difficult to pull it in or out. Out is fairly easy. It's just the in that's sometimes a bit difficult. But if I pull it in enough, then this is big enough to go around my neck twice. And I can still tighten it if I want to, or I can wear it like this. I can put it over my head and pull the string tight. So there's many ways of wearing this. And because it's black, it just goes with everything, no matter how colorful the things are that I'm wearing. It just goes with everything. So I really love it a lot. And I think it's 100 grams. I think it's just two 50-gram balls of yarn, and then knit with a big needle. You get a fairly big piece out of it. So that's the loop that I'm wearing. And the pullover I'm wearing is the Example. The pattern is called Example, and it was designed by Heather Griffin from HGDC. And I test crocheted the pattern for her when she was designing it, and she called it Example because she was, I think she wrote like a guideline how to do grading when you design clothes. And she used this pullover as the example in her guideline how to grade your clothes when you design. And it's a fairly simple pullover. It's crocheted in pieces. So I crocheted a front, a back, and 2 sleeves. And then the sleeves, I think, were crocheted in the round, but you change directions. So there's no seam here, but it looks almost looks like a seam. It's like with the other crochet pullover I'm doing. But the seams that are there, I crocheted them together with black yarn from the outside. So it's a visible seam and it's part of the pattern. And then I crocheted round the edges in black and also the neckline. And for the main part of the crochet, I used a 6-ply sock yarn in many colors. So that was one of the rainforest colors by Opal. And then I used a 4-ply sock yarn in black and held the two together. And so it's a mild effect with black and lots of colors, but because the black yarn was a bit thinner than the colorful yarn, you see more of the color than of the black. And I really love the effect that gives. And I've always thought I might do that again. You could do the same with a colorful yarn and white instead of black if you're more into white than black. I could also use a colorful yarn and then maybe a bright pink or a neon yellow or something as the contrast color. I think there are many very interesting possibilities available that you could do if you crochet this pattern. And and because it's a 6-ply and a 4-ply held together, it's like a 10-ply, and then it's crocheted, so it's quite thick and warm, and I love it. It's the perfect pullover for cold weather. It's not too wide, it's fairly long as you can see, so it keeps my back nice and warm. The sleeves have a really good length. There isn't much of a neckline, but that's okay, so it gives me the opportunity to wear all my cowls and scarves and shawls and all the things that I have. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with this pullover and can recommend the pattern. If you want to buy the pattern from her website, I have a link underneath the video, but I think it's also possible to get it through Ravelry, and there's also a link underneath the pattern because I link all the projects I talk about that have a project page. I will link underneath the video. My sister's things usually don't have Ravelry pages because she just doesn't do Ravelry pages. Maybe someday I'll teach her. Maybe someday I'll put her things on Ravelry so people can see them, but she just doesn't feel like doing that. Okay, so that's what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects today, and I didn't cast on anything new. Quite proud of myself. Don't know how it happened. I will probably cast on all the things in a few weeks' time, but for today, I'm happy with myself. As I said, 2 finished objects, and the older finished object is actually my Geogradient Shawl by Stephen West. And I finished knitting it the day before yesterday, or was it yesterday? No, I think I finished it yesterday, and I wove in all the ends, but I did not wash and block it. So just for you to see the whole shawl, it started off with the square in the middle. Then there was this stripy pattern to the left and right. I put in beads, they were not in the pattern. And then both sides got this beautiful slip stitch pattern that ended in a point. And once you'd finished that, you had a finished shawl, but there was still one clue to go. And what we did is we picked up stitches along the lower edge of the whole shawl, and then we knit this dip stitch pattern. And I think in the pattern you only do every color once and then you finish the shawl, but I did every color twice because I thought it was a bit too small an edge for this big shawl. It's not huge, but it is fairly big now. At first when we only had the 3 clues, I was a bit worried that it looked fairly small, but it's not that small. It's just not as huge as some of his other shawls, but that's okay. And mine's a bit bigger than it's supposed to be, so I'm happy with that. I use the Alpaka sock yarn by Hansa Farm. All the grey tones are Alpaka sock yarn. The black is the Merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm. I added a little bit of mohair sparkle in the in this stripe, only in this stripe, just for fun. And then, as I said in Clue 2, I put beads in some of the stripes, and I had different beads on this side than I had on that because I couldn't get the same beads again. But they're very similar. It's just a little size difference, but that's okay. And I changed the color sequence a little bit with Clue 1 and 2. But Clue 3, I think I didn't change anything. I knit it exactly as written. And then Clue 4, I knit as written except for making it longer. But that's an option in the pattern. So if you wanted to do that, it's actually in the pattern how to do that. And then the only other change is that I did not change color after doing the dip stitches before I did the I-cord bind off. So he recommends doing the dip stitch in the next color and then change color for the I-cord bind off. He says you can even do a 2-color bind off. I saw that with one of my friends who knit the shawl. She did a 2-color bind off. That looks interesting, but I chose to stick with the same color because I wanted a black edge. After I cast off, I realized it rolls up quite a bit. And also the Clue 3 edges, they tend to do some rolling. It's difficult to show now, so it's not too bad. But I really hope that this will go away with blocking. So I will, the plan is in the next week or next 2 weeks to wash and block the shawl, and then I can wear it in the next video. And the next video will be out in 2 weeks' time because next Monday we'll be on a very short holiday. So my husband and I are just going away for like 5 days, but it'll be, the Monday will be one of those days. So next Monday, I will publish the video that I made it's a tutorial video on how to knit the hexagon cardigan that I knit a few weeks back, where I knit a baby hexagon cardigan, and the tutorial for that will be there next Monday. And then in 2 weeks' time, there'll be the next proper episode, and there I hope I'll be wearing this shawl. As I said, I wove in all the ends. I didn't cut them, only when they were very long. So I like to just weave them in and leave them hanging like that, and then I'll wash and block it. And after blocking, when I've stretched things out more, then I'll snip whatever is left after the blocking. With the first 2 clues, I tried to do the weave and steven and work the ends in as I was going. I didn't always remember to do that, so some I had to weave in by hand. But with the Clue 3 and 4, it was really difficult. Here we had the slip stitches, and with the other, here we had the dip stitches, and both made it rather difficult to do the weave and steven. With the dip stitches, I could have done them in row 3 or 5, but I usually forgot. So yeah, many ends to weave in. Just for fun, this is what the dip stitches look like on the back. They are basically the same as on the front because you go deeper and then you pull the yarn through, so you have the yarn on the back and on the front, which makes this also fairly thick and warm. With the slip stitches, it's different. You don't see anything on the wrong side because you carry the yarn while you slip the stitches on the front, so you get this beautiful pattern on the front, but the back just has the stripes that do move around a little because of the slipping of the stitches, and then you have different height of stitches. Yeah, that's a Geogradient. I'm so happy to have it done, and I'm really looking forward to washing and blocking this to see if the edges are going to lay flat. I won't pull it apart a lot because there's no lace involved, except for those few eyelet rows here, but this is nothing that you have to pull apart a lot. I'll just make it lie flat and pin it down, so it might get a little bit bigger, but not, I won't pull it apart too much. That's what I'm trying to say. yeah, really happy I finished that, and I hope to show it to you in its blocked beauty while I wear it in 2 weeks' time. So the other finished project is my Hydra scaled socks. These are the qualifying pattern for this year's Sock Madness, and I finished the socks. I took the pictures, I sent my email with the link to my Ravelry page, and I passed, and I qualified to be put on a team as soon as the qualifying period is over, which is going to be this week, Saturday. And then once we get sorted into teams, the first round can start. And it might possibly start while I'm on my short holiday. So I'm really thinking of packing quite a lot of yarn and different sock needles, sock knitting needles, so that I might be able to start the first round while I'm on holiday. The designer of these socks is called Claire Wyvern. And I think it's a very beautiful pattern. I'll just put it on a different blocker to show the pattern more nicely. So on a block like this, you can see there are 3 of those cables, one in the main color, one in the contrast color, and then one in the second contrast color. It's a bit fiddly because in the beginning you have like 6 balls of yarn hanging off your sock, but it's not too bad, and the pattern itself is very well written. You know what to do, and you get into the crosses fairly quickly. It's one of those strong heels, I think they're called, where you increase your stitches and then you only knit this bit like to and fro, and then you go back to knitting in the round. And yeah, I'm really happy that I finished them. I'm happy I passed. I'm qualified to go on a team, and I'm also very happy to have a nice pair of green socks to donate to the organization who help women with cancer. Excuse me. So these were my 2 finished objects. Then on to works in progress. And again, I'll continue with some socks. I showed you the finished sock for my sister, the first of the very simple stockinette note pattern socks, but with the anatomical toe. And I knit past the heel of the second sock. So this bit is something that I can knit while I read or while I concentrate on something else. I don't have to look. I can knit that in the dark. I just have to make sure I don't knit too many rounds. And then I knit the heel, and then it was quite funny. While I was knitting the heel, I realized that the colors came out quite similar. And then I held the 2 socks next to each other, and you know that I never try to have identical socks. I just knit the yarn the way it comes off the ball, and they are almost identical. I think the first sock has like 1 or 2 rounds more at the top. So the heel is not exactly the same, but almost the same. And yeah, it's quite funny. My sister doesn't mind. She doesn't mind whether they're identical or not, so it won't be a problem. It just surprises me that even though I never pay attention to that, they sometimes do end up being almost exactly or exactly the same. Yeah, so this is the Showbiz color, one of the Showbiz colors from this Opal series. And I can just continue knitting the second one. So because I finished the heel, I now have, again, a project where I don't have to look, I don't have to think, and I just can zoom through, I think, 60 rounds, and then I have to pay attention to see at what point I start at the toe. And that's the only sock I'm knitting at the moment. I'm quite shocked myself. I know I'll be starting another Sock Madness sock in probably a week's time, but I might start another sock as well before that pattern drops. So we'll see about that. The next project is my little baby cardigan. I think I didn't show that last week, but I added a second sleeve. So this is the pattern by Telly Bean Knits, and I think it's called Showered in Rainbows, and I'm knitting it as part of the pattern battle in the Opal Abo group, Opal subscription group. So everybody is using this colorway, but everybody is knitting a different pattern. And one of the things the thing I love about this pattern is because you knit the baby cardigan in so many pieces and directions, the yarn comes out completely different than if you knit the cardigan just in one piece. And so the first sleeve I knit had 3 of the dark grey stripes, and now the second sleeve only has 2 because there's all the other colors came first. And what I thought might happen did happen. Those 2 grey stripes are almost at the same height, and then one has the second one here, the other has the second here. So that's quite funny, and I'm really happy with how this cardigan is coming along. The next bit I'm going to do is one of the fronts and then the other front. And once I finish the fronts and the button bands, all I have to do is the neckline and the ribbing at the lower edge of the cardigan so it stops rolling. Yeah, really happy with that. That's it for sock yarn for the moment. The next project is the little grey hat I'm knitting. I had knit another hat out of those Norwegian yarns. I showed that in the last episode, and I first knit the light grey and the middle grey so that my 3 leftover bits were the same amount, and then I started the stripes that I showed you in the book last week, and now I will just continue knitting those stripes until I've almost run out of yarn so that I can then quickly do the decreases, and I will hopefully have a hat that's really deep that I can fold up, and yeah, that's the plan. It's quite an easy knit. I enjoy knitting the yarn. It's rather a rustic yarn. It's not super soft, but it makes it really warm and really sturdy, which isn't that important in a hat, but still I really like it, and I'm looking forward to finishing this hat. It'll go perfectly with my Geogradient shawl, by the way. I will have to wear them together at some point. The next project is my double knit cowl called Remember. It's a pattern by Nathan Taylor, the Sockomatician, and I think it's another of the projects that I did not show you last week, but I made sure to pick it up this week, and I added a few more rounds to this. It's my first proper double knit project. That's not true. I did 2 of the double knit brioche project by the Sockomatician, but I think this is the first proper double knit project I'm doing. I've done several squares in different sizes just for practicing purposes, but this is the first proper project, and I'm really enjoying it. I have to count the stitches all the time, so you count the number of stitches in one color and then in the other color to get those beautiful flowers. I decided to not do the nups that are in the pattern, but do beads in the middle of the petals. I finished this huge one, so I think last week I was still in this bit, so I was quite happy to finish that, and I've started several new ones. Here's a new flower starting, and where else? I thought there was another new one. I don't know. Anyway, this is the side that I look at while I knit. I think I will probably wear it more with this side out, because then you have the red poppies, and I love the black beads that I chose to use. At first I was worried they might be too big, but now I just love the way they look inside these red petals. And yeah, really enjoying it. I'm at the point where I'm knitting flowers almost all around. There's just a little part here where there's no flower, and I think at some point there'll be less flowers again, and it's I think only this part that has flowers the whole way through, and then the rest there'll be flowers sometimes and sometimes not. And this is what I love about double knitting, that you can space your contrast color any way you like, because you don't have any floats, because you always knit both colors. It's a really nice technique, and it gives you a double thick fabric, and it gives you the reverse pattern on the other side. Fantastic technique. I'm using the Alpaka silk yarn by Hansa Farm. So that's a very special and beautiful yarn. And I enjoy knitting that project. I'm not even keen on finishing it soon because I just really enjoy handling the yarn and then putting in beads. It takes time, but that's fine. I'll just take my time and enjoy the process. Yeah, then I come to the crochet section, my 2 crochet projects, and I continue crocheting on the square by Shelley Husband out of her Granny Square patchwork book, and I sat down with my first square that I crocheted, and I looked at the numbers, how many stitches I had at one side in that square, and I looked at the pattern, and I've decided how to add rows to this square, and I'll be just adding double crochet and single crochets, American terms, or double crochet and trebles. So very simple edge, so it won't be the same as with the other square, but that's okay. I will end up with the same number of stitches as the other square, and then I will make sure that in blocking I will block it to the same size as the other square. So this will then be either the front or back of my summer pullover that I'm planning. And then once I've stopped crocheting because I finished the ball of yarn that was hanging off it. I'm using the Diamant by Wollrödel. I think it's a discontinued yarn, but it's a pure cotton yarn that runs 150 meters to 50 grams. And yeah, I have to remember to either have to bring the yarn to the shop or I'll have to take this home so I can finish those last, I think I have to finish this round and then 2 more rounds. And then I should have the same number of stitches, and then I can block this. And then I have to look at the book and decide which squares to use for the sleeves. So I can either do a fairly big square and fold it in half and then have maybe like a half a sleeve or a 3/4 sleeve, or I can do smaller squares and then do 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. That should give me maybe a bit more of a long sleeve, but I don't know yet. So what I want to do is I want to use one of the other 2 patterns that look like this. So there are 3 patterns in the book, or 3 squares in the book that use this pattern. And one is fairly small, one is like middle size, and then the big one. And I would love to use either the middle one or the little one for one of the sleeves. Yeah, but I don't know which one yet. I'll have to look at how big the squares are and then try and calculate how big I want my sleeve to be. So there'll be quite a bit of planning to do once I finish this, or even while I'm finishing it. It doesn't have to be finished for me to start making plans for the sleeves. So that's the one of the crochet projects, and the other crochet project is the winter pullover I'm crocheting out of the 8-ply sock yarn by Opal. So we're back to sock yarn for a moment, and as planned, I finished crocheting the second sleeve. So both sleeves are done now. They should be the same length. Yeah, pretty sure I got them to be the same length. And I started crocheting the front and back down. So once I finished the sleeve, I just started crocheting. And the pattern says to start the round in the middle of the back. So it sort of looks like it does here. So the yoke, you start and end in the middle of the back, but then you do the rows to raise the back, and those sort of don't have an obvious seam here, and I didn't want to have the seam in the middle of my back, so I decided to start the round underneath one of the arms. So I will have something that looks like a seam underneath the left arm, and but it means the colors will run through the front and the back, and I think that's the way I like it. And then I just crocheted over all the stitches that I had, and now I have to just go straight down, and I hope to get a lot of that done during the next 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to take that project with me on our mini holiday, and we'll see how far I get. So that's that. I did not knit on my skirt. So it's a decision of either finishing the Geogradient or adding some rounds to the skirt, and I really did want to finish the Geogradient. So no skirt today, but I continued knitting on the dress that I'm knitting out of the Mamaki pattern by Niccolor, and there I did not quite do what I expected to do. So I was planning on finishing the yoke and then knitting the first sleeve and then cut the yarn for the first time, because I'm knitting with this big huge thing, cone I think is the word. And but what happened is that one of the yarns was broken, and I think there's another bit of yarn that's broken right here. And I think what happened is I put this cone into my bag and into the, it's a bag that I use with my bike. So it's a fairly hard bag. And I think by putting it in and taking it out, I think I rubbed on the edge of the cone too much, and a few of the strands just broke. And when I got to the point where the yarn was broken, I decided instead of just continuing, I cut my yarn. So I cut the yarn that I was using to knit the yoke, and because I had to cut the yarn anyway, I decided to continue by putting in the neckline, because I had been worrying a little bit that if I knit the sleeve before I knit the neckline, that it might be difficult to get the length right, because as long as there's no ribbing in the neckline, the yoke sits differently, and the sleeve may seem to be long enough, but then you put the neckline in and you pull things in, and then the sleeve could be too short. So I used that moment that I had to cut the yarn anyway to put in the ribbing around the neck. And this is how far I got. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way it looks. I do want to add a few more rounds to it. And I decided to go for a knit one per one ribbing. The pattern calls for a stockinette, neckline, neckband, something. But I wanted to do some ribbing, and I'm quite happy with my choice. And I will do the same kind of ribbing at the edge of the arm and at the bottom of the front and back. Yeah, so that was quite a surprise, but I'm also very happy to get that done. When I finish the neckline, I'll continue knitting the yoke, and then after the yoke, I will go straight into the sleeve the way I planned. And I hope to get the length of the sleeve right then, because the neckline's already there. Yeah, so that brings me to our knit along, and we are knitting either Haramaki or reversible hats. And I already did a hat, and I'm now knitting on my Haramaki. I'm knitting one in 2-color brioche, and added a few rounds. It's always hard to tell. I know a lot of people put progress keepers in. I can never remember to do that. But I have this is again the merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm on one side, and then opal sock yarn on the outside. And I measured it at some point, and I calculated that I will probably be knitting around 160 rounds to get the length that they specify in the book, but I might also try it on every now and then to see if I want to have exactly that length, or maybe make it a bit longer or shorter. But from weighing the yarn and counting the rounds and measuring it, I know that the 100 grams that I have of each color will be more than enough. And yeah, I just have to keep working on it. And that's it. Yeah, so that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!